What a night, he repeated hoarsely. What feasting and carousing! A real gorge. I must have eaten the remains of 30 lunches. Never I have seen such livings, and everything well ripened and seasoned with the passage of time and the heat of the day. Oh, it was rich, my friends, rich. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, said Charlotte in disgust. It would serve you right if you had an acute attack of indigestion. Don't worry about my stomach, snarled Templeton. It can't handle anything. And by the way, I've got some bad news. As I came past that pig next door, the one that calls himself Uncle, I noticed a blue tag on the front of his pen. That means he has won first prize. I guess you're licked, Wilbur. You might as well relax. Nobody's going to hang any matter on you. Furthermore, I wouldn't be surprised if Zuckerman changes his mind about you. Wait until he gets hankering for some fresh pork and smoked ham and crisp bacon. He will take the knife to you, my boy. Be still, Templeton, said Charlotte. You are too stuffed and bloated to know what you are saying. Don't pay any attention to him, Wilbur. Wilbur tried not to think about what the rat had just said. He decided to change the subject. Templeton, said Wilbur, if you weren't so dopey, you would have noticed that Charlotte has made an exec. She's going to become a mother. For your information, there are 514 eggs in that peachy little set. Is it true? Asked the rat, eyeing the sack suspiciously. Yes, it's true, sighed Charlotte. Congratulations, murmured Templeton. This has been a night. He closed his eyes, pulled some straw over himself, and dropped off into a deep sleep. Wilbur and Charlotte were glad to be rid of him for a while. At 9 o'clock, Mr. Albert's truck rolled into the fairgrounds and came to a stop at Wilbur's pen. Everybody climbed out. Look, cried Fun. Look at Charlotte's Web. Look what it says. The grown-ups and the children joined hands and stood there, studying the new sign. Humble, said Mr. Zuckerman. Now, isn't that just a word for Wilbur? Everyone rejoiced to find that the miracle of the web had been repeated. Wilbur gazed up lovingly into their faces. He looked very humble and very grateful. Fawn winked at Charlotte. Lurby soon got busy. He poured a bucket of warm slops into the trough, and while Wilbur ate his breakfast, Lurby scratched him gently with a smooth stick. Wait a minute, cried Avery. Look at this. He pointed to the blue tag on Uncle's pen. This pig has won first prize already. The Zuckermans and the Arabs stared at the tag. Mrs. Zuckerman began to cry. Nobody said a word. They just stared at the tag. Then they stared at Uncle. Then they stared at the tag again. Lurby took out an enormous handkerchief and blew his nose very loud. So loud, in fact, that the noise was heard by several boys over at the horse barn. Can I have some money? Asked Fun. I want to go out on the midway. You stay right where you are, said her mother. Tears came to Fun's eyes. What's everybody crying about? Asked Mr. Zuckerman. Let's get busy. Edith, bring the buttermilk. Mrs. Zuckerman wiped her eyes with her handkerchief. She went to the truck and came back with a gallon jar of buttermilk. Bath time, said Zuckerman cheerfully. He and Mrs. Zuckerman and Avery climbed into Wilbur's pen. Avery slowly poured the buttermilk on Wilbur's head and back, and as it trickled down his sides and cheeks, Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman rubbed it into his hair and skin. Passersby stopped to watch. Pretty soon, quite a crowd had gathered. Wilbur grew beautifully white and smooth. The morning sun shone through his pink ears. He isn't as big as that pig next door, remarked one bystander, but he's cleaner, that's what I like. So do I, said another man. He's humble too, said a woman, reading the sign on the web. Everybody who visited the pig pen had a good word to say about Wilbur. Everyone admired the web. And of course, nobody noticed Charlotte. Suddenly, a voice was heard on the loudspeaker. Attention, please, it said. Will Mr. Homer Zuckerman bring his famous pig to the judge's booth in front of the grandstand? A special award will be made there in 20 minutes. Everyone is invited to attend. Crate your pig, please, Mr. Zuckerman, and report to the judge's booth promptly. For a moment after this announcement, the Arabs and the Zuckermans were unable to speak or move. Then every picked up a handful of straw and threw it high in the air and gave a loud yell. The straw fluttered down like a confetti into Fawn's hair. Mr. Zuckerman hugged Mrs. Zuckerman. Mr. Arab kissed Mrs. Arab. Every kissed Wilbur. Lurby shook hands with everybody. Fawn hugged her mother. Every hugged Fawn. Mrs. Arab hugged Mrs. Zuckerman.